How do companies really get convinced themselves as their employees and the stakeholders that this is something what they should do? So again, sometimes you might think I'm a little bit biased by always point them towards the risk. If you don't do this, then what will happen? And immediately it strikes a bell. It strikes a chord with the top executives that what are the risks of sustainability. We think that okay, sustainability maybe we should do or not do, and if you take surveys of CEOs, maybe 50% will tell that this is important and 50% will tell it is not important. But if you really sort of open their eyes to the risks of non-sustainability in terms of its impact on operations and markets and overall business performance, then they sort of get it. Then they get it and understand it. That there are inherent risks. If I continue the status quo of what we are doing this without having sustainable operations and my company's performance cannot be sustained over a longer period of time. So then I need to tailor my sustainability strategies also considering these sort of risks on operations, markets, and business performance. And again, taking some of the existing theories and knowledge, I've created some kind of a useful framework which can be used by companies. So you look at risks from non-sustainability on one axis and the competitive focus priorities of the company as well as in typically in the industry. And then you find out which are the right set of initiatives for you to invest in. And maybe it's also over a period of time. As I said, many companies start at the bottom left corner. They look at, okay, operating risks are high when we have a lot of raw materials and we are quite resource intensive business, and our processes is also something maybe which is very significant for a food processing company or a maybe chemical company. It's a primarily process driven industry. So eco-efficiency is a good initiative for us to start. There are a lot of operating risk, and the process is something which is something of priority for us. So eco-efficiency can be one way to start with. But as you see in this matrix, there can be multiple initiatives. And maybe the best performing companies in terms of sustainability will have all of these and they will prioritize this dynamically over a period of time. Maybe they start with eco-efficiency and then move to more product stewardship and overall long-term sustainable development. Similarly, if the operating risk is high, but primarily it's a product company, process is not something which differentiate with your customers, then it's the environmental cost leadership of your products. So I will come back to that. But environmental cost leadership again means optimal use of resources so that you have less environmental impact. At the same time, you reduce your cost. So you use less materials, you use less harmful materials, and by doing that, you reduce the overall environmental footprint, and you also are able to save costs. If you think it's a market risk, again, more consumer-oriented companies, processed food again is more consumer-oriented. So it's a market risk. Obviously, there are some regulations, as we know, in food industry. Many companies just try to tick off what is really needed from the compliance point of view. But if you really want to differentiate, maybe it's beyond compliance leadership is not what you want. You go beyond what is being stipulated by the regulations. You do try to do something which is generally good for environment and society, and by that you also reduce some parts of your market risk. At the same time, these kind of companies may also need to, if they have a lot of products and products are really differentiators, maybe eco-branding of the products is also needed. It should not be purely only branding, as we say, but obviously branding combined with many of the things. If they have really not done much but just want to brand, then that will be like a hollow branding. I'm not an expert on marketing or branding, but this can be should be supplemented or complemented with other environmental initiatives, and you focus that in your marketing and promotion efforts by highlighting the eco-efficiency of your products and so that as a branding differentiator. As we move ahead, as companies also think that their long-term business sustainability is actually quite threatened if they don't do this, then they will also invest in product stewardships. So it is really taking each of these products and ensuring that they are using the most sustainable raw materials, their processes are all very environmental friendly, they take care of their suppliers and the social work practices, and they really are driving innovations in their particular product category through sustainability, and that really is a differentiator. And overall long-term sustainable development, they will also, as I said, they will work closely with NGOs and other governmental bodies, they will actively involved in improving the life of their employees or and throughout the supply chain with their suppliers and suppliers and raw material providers and so on. So they really, these kind of companies really believe in long-term sustainable development of all their stakeholders. And it's happening. And we, in the food industry itself, we have seen many companies have taken their path because food is something which is something which we can all relate to. It's related to consumers' health, at the same time health of a lot of people who are involved in that processes of making, picking up some in the cocoa beans in some plantations in Africa. And they also work in quite hazardous conditions. Their working conditions are poor, very economically. But if what happens if those economic conditions of those farmers or the people who are working in those farms are not improved? You may be a big chocolate manufacturer, but if you don't take care of those people who are actually making sure that your product hits the market, then your business will not be sustainable. And I think many companies have realized that, and they really are investing in this in a long-term perspective.